Great. Well, welcome again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are honored to be here with you all. Um, we are, so excited to share some updates that we have for back to school. Um, and please know that in the following days, you will get an email that's going to contain the resource links that Erin is dropping in the chat for you all, as well as a recording of this webinar. So if you miss anything, do not worry. We will send out that recording and links. And I'm first going to start by introducing our team. Um, so I am joined by my team members this evening. I'll start with Shaelynn. She is our Senior Director of Partnership Strategy at the News Literacy Project, which we like to call NLP. You can see Shaylynn's contact information on the screen, but it is also on the resource sheet that Erin is dropping in the chat. So if you have questions for any of us, you can definitely contact us using that information. I also want to introduce Erin. Erin is the Senior Manager of Partnership Strategy. She largely focuses on the West region. And her contact information is also on the document. And then finally, there's me. I am Brittney, and I am Erin's counterpart. So I'm the Senior Manager of Education. The Senior Manager of Partnership Strategy for the east side of the nation. And again, my contact information can be seen on the slide and as well on the resource sheet. So I want to invite you all to join the conversation with us this evening. And I'd love to hear why news and media literacy skills are valuable for young people today. So be sure to jump in the chat. We want to hear from you. While we're waiting, if any of my colleagues want to jump in and give some ideas about why these skills are valuable for young people. Any takers?
Well, I'm just going to pull from a conversation that happened today during our workday with colleagues, discussing how some of their younger kiddos were watching an educational video on YouTube, and an ad interrupted that video. And suddenly, kiddo thought, oh, I need this, or what about this? And did you know this, mom? And it got me thinking about how different messages, different types of content have entered every facet of our life. So we might think we're watching one thing, but we're going to get inundated with something else. And if we aren't equipped with strategies to recognize what is what and what influence that might have on us, I mean, that's dangerous. And so I think just the way of our world, that's why it's necessary.
Nailed it. And Brittney, these answers are fantastic. Sean nailed it. Sean said required for our democracy to function. So extremely important. But please continue to add that information in there. Why is it important? And also let us know where you are from and what your role in education is.
Yes, I see one other answer that I want to call out because I love this. Janice said that she calls the students today the one-click generation because they believe everything they see first on a Google page. They think what pops up first must be the most correct information. And sometimes those are ads. You can actually pay to have your information pushed to the top, and it'll say ad, but it's easy to miss that. So that's a wonderful point. And thank you so much to everyone for participating in the chat. I want to take a couple of moments just to talk a little bit about the News Literacy Project, who we are, what our vision is, and how we are working to solve the issues that we're seeing today around news literacy. So our mission is to build a national movement to advance the practice of news literacy throughout our society and create a better informed, more engaged population with more empowered individuals, and in tandem that will help to build a stronger democracy. And so our vision is that all people of all ages and backgrounds will be able to identify credible information so that they can decide what to share with their social networks and their loved ones, and decide what's garbage and what does not need to go any further. And so we really just want to empower our citizens, to encourage them to play a role in the civic life of our country. And we also want to drive home the point that the free press has an integral role to democracy. I didn't talk about who founded us, but we were founded by a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist named Alan C. Miller, who visited his daughter's classroom and realized that students really needed some training about identifying credible information and evaluating information that they encounter. And so that is how news literacy project was born. And we've come such a long way since 2008. We believe that young adults have a right to news literacy education, especially now in this complex information landscape that we are experiencing. I'm sure that you all know, many of you are librarians, I've seen social studies educators. You all know that students are being bombarded by information from all sides. And the best way to fight against this misinformation is to have a well-informed public that can discern fact from fiction, but and reject false information. And that really begins with our youth. So teachers, you have a valuable part in this fight against misinformation. We know that information leads to decisions that you'll make, and those decisions lead to actions. But the problem with misinformation is that it can change the trajectory of our decisions and actions. And so we have to make sure that we're basing our decisions and actions on credible information. And that is where news literacy comes in, because misinformation is going to exploit those deeply held beliefs and values and strong emotions. And it's going to start to get us all in our feelings, as the young people like to say today. And so when we think of news literacy, there are specific competencies that we like to see in a news literate person. And so I'm going to kind of go through those with you. We want to see people who can determine the accuracy of information, as well as the credibility of the source of that information. We also want students and other citizens to understand those standards of fact-based journalism and use them to help guide them when they're deciding what to trust and what to share and what actions to take. And we want to drive home that importance of a free press and how that interacts with engagement and participation in civic life. Because as I said before, we know that the free press is really the cornerstone to our democracy. And news literacy training is designed to teach people how to think. We don't want to teach them what to think. We want to give them the skills to evaluate and use this news literacy training to further their civic activity. And so with that, I am going to hand it over to Shaelynn, who is going to talk about Checkology, which is our flagship virtual classroom. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Shaelynn, while you get set up, I'll go ahead and explain Checkology. So that's our cloud-based platform that has over 20 lessons. all taught by subject matter experts related to news and media literacy. In addition to those 20 lessons, there are extensions and support activities to really hit those concepts and to help you as you teach and design instruction for your students. The benefit of Checkology is those lessons are supplemental. So no matter the framework for your instructional design, whether you are following a project-based learning format, or if you are following an inquiry format, whatever your instructional design, you are able to incorporate those lessons to support the concepts and those skills that you're teaching students. Just as Brittney mentioned, it's about teaching students not what to think, but how to think. And so we think that you'll appreciate, exactly as we do appreciate, these rich resources and lessons that you were able to use, again, taught by subject matter experts equipped with formative assessments after a taught concept. And we're going to give you a highlight into that after Shaelynn shows you the behind the scenes of that cloud-based program, Checkology.
Yes, thank you, Erin, so much. And please put any questions you may have in the chat. Erin is going to share the Google document. Brittney will quickly answer any questions or bring them to our attention. So please make sure you utilize the chat. This Google resource document that we've created for you not only has our contact information, but things for you to use back in your classroom, not only the lessons that we're going to highlight, but tutorials for helping getting started, how to reach out in our help center, how to follow us in various places, if you are on Instagram, if you're on Facebook, and also about Newslet Nation, our educator community. So make sure you check that out and explore the links. You'll also notice among my 1,000 tabs that I have on my computer screen is we put the most popular lessons according to disciplines at the bottom of the sheet. Now do note, our lessons, our Checkology, our infographics, our virtual learning opportunities, everything from the News Literacy Project is completely free to use. There's no freemium. We do not charge for student or educator accounts. Everything is completely free. And it is fantastic, relevant, highly engaging, classroom-ready resources. So you will see again that these are all lessons that teachers find most applicable across their disciplines, because we know that mis and disinformation and being able to locate reliable, relevant sources is a necessity across all disciplines. So that is the Google document, and that will be shared periodically. So Checkology, what is it? How do you get started? Well, Checkology, the link is on the document. It is a browser-based platform, as Erin said. You don't have to download any software. As I put in the chat earlier, if you have any documents about student data or safety or security, please send them directly to me so we can fill those out for you. But you'll notice as I'm showing you how to set this up, we collect very minimal PII information on students. In fact, they don't even have to use an email to create an account, but they do have to remember their passwords. So we have some tips. If they're used to single sign-on, that's what we suggest. But if you do not have an account already, you simply go to getcheckology.com and you click on register. Now you'll see we have multiple options: educators, students, and independent learners. We have an independent learner or a public version, which is perfect for families and communities to learn alongside their students. So if you have a family night, if you are sharing technology support to families and community members, be sure to share not only our website, newslet.org, but also our Checkology public version. But you as an educator will want the educator version that allows you to customize the content that students go through according to your standards or learning objectives. When you click on register here, it will pull up a place where you will put private or public school. You will also put the zip code, and the zip code allows you to connect with co-teachers in your specific school. So don't put the zip code where you live. I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going incognito here. Don't put the zip code where you live. Instead, put the zip code of the specific school that you are looking for. So you'll see here, I'm just quickly going to fill this out. I'm from Iowa, so I'm going to list this. You'll see the drop down arrow according to my school zip code will pull up all the different options. And again, this will allow you to add a co-teacher, which I'm going to share with you for a moment. Now, Brittney and Erin, I don't know if I told you this, but I had a longtime educator who was retiring, and the person that was taking her place was going on maternity leave. So we brainstormed different ways on how that could be covered by 2 long-term subs for their maternity leave. And we thought as long as they could allow co-teachers and everyone registered underneath the school, it would be a perfect fit. So paras, substitutes, if you're doing cross-discipline teachers, that's where it's extremely important. So you simply click the school name and create your account. Again, if you are used to single sign-on with Google or Amazon, that is, of course, what we suggest not only you as an educator, but also your students use. But I already have an account. I have many accounts. So we're going to pull back one of my accounts that I have open, and you'll see before you the teacher dashboard. It's very easy to use. It kind of reminds me of Flipgrid by Microsoft because it has that big plus sign. This is similar to what students view on their end, but they don't have as many tabs across the top. But the dashboard is where I'm in now, and this is where you're going to not only create your class, but you're going to add students and also create your course. So please, as I fill this out, let me know if there's any questions in the chat, Brittney and Erin. I'm going to quickly populate this and then we can move on.
No questions so far about what you've shared as you populate.
So I'm entering a class title here, the student type. Now this makes a difference if you choose middle school, high school, higher education, non-US, because it defaults to a foundational Checkology course, either for middle school or for high school. So if you don't know what to assign students, if you don't know where to start, as long as you fill this out at the beginning, it will default to that foundational course. So it helps get it started for you. Grade levels, so I have high school, let's say it's 10th, and subject, let's say we're going to do an ELA. The next portion that I want to show you while you're setting up your course is this course lock option. The course lock option is a fantastic way for you to either keep the pace of how students advance through the different lessons, or if you turn it off, it allows students to progress through the lessons you've assigned on their own individual pace. So it's great for online learning, great during the pandemic when students had virtual classes, great if you're assigning some work outside of the classroom. You can turn the course light off, but it does default to on. So course lock means students have to progress through the lessons in the order that you set them up. You can always choose on or off for this. You can change the settings in all of these different classes. The advanced setting is something that we definitely want to highlight for a few reasons. First, you'll see the co-teachers. Again, this will show you who in your specific school is also on Checkology, and you can do cross-discipline work with them. You can have a collaborative advisory time. You can set up an account for a para or a sub, lots of uses, but the co-teacher is found underneath that advanced setting. Along with the co-teacher, we've added this popular one-to-many mode. Oftentimes in this current education climate, teachers love teaching whole class instruction and utilizing the one-to-many mode. Again, this is underneath the advanced settings. One-to-many mode allows the teacher to project the learning, which is all short videos, onto the large screen in front of their students, and then students can complete the formative assessment within the lessons on their own. So one-to-many, perfect for whole class instruction. You'll see the lessons auto-populate, so you don't have to do it for all of them, but it's a great alternative. Again, the videos don't pop up on the student's Checkology account, just the formative assessment. You'll also notice we have lots of other options. Contests, we run them for students throughout the year. Right now, we're running our fabulous InfoZones contests. It's a great way to have students' work showcased on our platform. Here's a pre and post assessment. This allows you to see the growth and collect those data points needed to increase their news and media literacy learning, along with a discussion wall. Now, this is different than other discussion walls in that it's self-contained just to your classroom. You'll see it's defaulted as on, but you can turn it off. So again, the discussion wall, while it is a typical forum for students to share and reflect and add information, it is just contained to your classroom. So it's not available to the outside participants. So again, the advanced setting is a perfect place to maximize your Checkology class. You can add co-teachers, the one-to-many mode, there's contests, and information about the pre and post assessment. I'm going to pause, Brittney and Erin, to see if there's any questions about those things.
We do have a few good questions. We have one that asks about what students see on their individual devices in one-to-many mode. And then we've got another question about whether or not students can see the results of the pre and post tests and if they can retake the post assessments.
Oh, those are excellent questions. And we do have some links for the Help Center on the Google resources that you can dig into the assessment and the different types we offer. We believe in, of course, formative assessment built within the lessons that allow students to not only learn a specific skill, but then apply it immediately, learn it and apply it. So the pre and the post, they do get information back on how well they did, but also the teacher does. Formative assessment, it defaults into multiple attempts. Teachers can turn that off if they want to, but it allows students to take up to 5 different attempts on a specific formative assessment within the platform. But those are great questions. And be sure to check out the Help Center, search for assessment, and it'll tell you all the various options available for educators. Brittney, another one?
Did you answer what students see on their devices in one-to-many mode? You did. Okay.
I have not. I thought that's a great
okay.
question. And that's why I set up my incognito tab here. So I am going to show that actually next. If I don't answer exactly what you're needing, please let me know. So you'll notice here's my one-to-many mode. I'm going to just take that first lesson. As soon as I create the class, it is going to show me a few things. First, it will ask me, add students, and you can add students at any time. When you add students, it gives you 2 different options. Invite students to join is by far the easiest thing to do. It provides a link for you. You just copy and paste this link. Here's the link that I'm going to put into my incognito window, and students will encounter this. They'll ask for a class code. It already auto-populates it because it's a specific link just to your class. So they don't even have to do anything. Once they press join, it'll ask them Google, Microsoft, or register with a name and a password. Again, we follow best practices in student safety, security, and data. You do not have to have students use their email to create an account, but they do have to remember their own password because we do not have access to them. So if students are used to using single sign-on with Google or Microsoft, have them use that. It's much easier than having them remember the password. So let's say I'm going to sign in with just a name and a password. So I'm not going to put email there because I have lots of accounts here. And test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So once I register, of course, those passwords don't work. Test.
You just need an uppercase and a special symbol.
Okay, there we go. Let's try this one. Test.
Tricky,
1, 2,
tricky.
3. Right? See, this is why single sign-on is so much easier. 1, 2,
Oh,
3,
for sure.
4, 5, 6. There it is. When you register, and this is a student view, it tells me my username and my password. That is what students have to remember if they do not use their single sign-on. Once you push I got it, it'll say, here you go again, write this down, make sure you have it. And you'll see this is what the student dashboard looks like. It gives them, of course, progress, total points, check center activities. There's the discuss wall, the locker, the dashboard. Here's the class that I'm in. It doesn't have anything yet because on my teacher view, I have not assigned the content. So I'm going back over to my class. Here is my code that I put into my incognito window, and you'll notice this assign the course. Now, as Erin said at the beginning, Checkology is aligned to multiple disciplines. So ELA, NGSS, ISTE student standards, the C3 framework, social studies, library media specialist. It is to be used across disciplines for grades 5 and up. It has over 20 lessons, exercises, and challenges. Typically, we see educators use about 6 to 8 lessons. It's meant to enhance what you are doing in the classroom, a supplementary curriculum, and meant to target those learning objectives already set forth. We're going to highlight some of these lessons, but as I said, it defaults based on what high school, middle school, or grade level you chose. And you'll see, since I didn't have a customized course, this defaulted since I chose grade 10 to high school course. So I can either preview the course and see what it includes. Here's the eyeball, I'm pushing preview. It tells me there's 7 lessons, 2 challenges. It highlights the courses. It shows me what is included in this. And if I think it is great to go, I can push assign to class. Otherwise, you can customize the course. Customizing the course allows you to drag and drop to include those lessons that you feel are most exceptional to meet those needs of the learning objectives of your students. So I'm going to put back to school test here. I'm going to put see ya for the description. I'm going to start from the preset course. And as soon as I put save, this will allow me to customize it. Again, very intuitive. It reminds me of universal symbols that we've seen on multiple LMSs before and curriculum management system. Here's the course, here's what's in it. If I don't like it, if I'm not talking about it this semester, you can simply push the X and it deletes it from your course. Let's say instead I want to add this new lesson on the power in art. It talks about editorial cartooning, one of my very favorite. You simply drag it over and drop, and it is there in your assigned course. Again, very intuitive. It's easy to use. And it is already assigned to the class because that is grayed out. So that's a way to customize it, but there's also more. So we've had teachers already ask this year, so we wanted to include it in this webinar, is what if I want to start from scratch and customize my own course? And so what we find with that is very interesting and an easy way to do it. So you can view and edit the course. When you view and edit the course right here, you are going to go up here and let's see here. Underneath, you'll see customize the course, change the course, or preview the course. Well, I want to start from scratch. So I'm going to choose change the course. When you change the course, you'll see multiple preset courses. I saw there's some Illinois educators in there. Hello, Illinois. We have one specifically for media literacy and Illinois educators. Another favorite one is the journalism and civics one. But if you want to start right from scratch and you want to build your own lessons for your students to take, you go scroll way down to the bottom and click on Get Started. Get Started allows you again to put a test course name back to school, 4. A description again is see ya. When I push save, you'll see it has the similar listing of all of the challenges, exercises, and lessons, but it does not have anything auto-populated on the other side. So it allows you to add your course. So let's say I'm going to do this arguments and evidence. It says, do you want the supplemental activities? Yes or no? I'm going to put yes. I also know I'm going to talk about primary purpose, and I'm going to put that up top. So I'm dropping that. 2 more supplements? No, I don't think so. And understanding bias. That is definitely one where I want students to understand and recognize bias in what they're consuming. And as soon as I have those all dropped in and am happy with it, knowing that I can go back and change it, you'll notice it says right there, changes are saved, but it's also grayed out up top. So I know that was a lot, Brittney and Erin. We showed 3 different ways to add content to the class, but I know just from being back at school less than a month, we already have multiple districts and educators asking us, how do you build a class from the ground up? There's how. Again, once you choose change course, it's at the very bottom, how to customize and create your own class. So I'm going to pause to see if there are any questions.
And just a quick question that I answered in the chat, but I'll speak to it, is about if you can change class content after you create the class, then yes, you can edit. Whereas when Shaelynn showed customizing the course and having it starting from scratch, maybe you're just adding one lesson in and you decide after that lesson's complete that you want to add in more content. You just go to view edit course and you can do you can add that back in more content, that click and drag over that was very visual and intuitive, view edit course, and you're able to go back in and add more lessons if you so desire. A question that also just came up is, can students have access to videos if you choose the whole class presentation mode, that one-to-many? And that one-to-many mode can be shut off at any time just by going into that advanced settings. So when you're looking at your class and you see that advanced edit, I feel like it's a gear icon, but you can shut that off. So
I'm going to show that, I think.
Okay. So
Let's
students
show that. Yeah.
Okay.
So exactly what Erin was just speaking about, customizing, you can go back in at any time and edit. So let's say I don't want to add these exercises because I saw the fabulous new Is It Legit exercise that Hannah Covington, our colleague, just created last year about the 5 tips to help students. It's listicle inform, understand mis and disinformation, and evaluate online content. So I just quickly added that and you'll see it's already saved. So exactly what Erin said, you can change it. You can add things. Some people only start with a couple lessons and add throughout the year because it's year long. All of this is very flexible in nature. But let's go back to that initial question. So here is the course, and I'm going to go back to my class. I already know it's assigned. And when you push back to the class and you pull it back out to the dashboard, you'll see class settings, students, report, assignments, class link to join. So you can add a student at any time. You can change the settings. You can view and edit the course. But underneath that class settings, that's where I'm going to find those advanced settings. I'm going to turn on the one-to-many mode. InfoZones, the very first one the students are going to see on their dashboard. I'm going to say, let's do that one-to-many mode. So you'll see what it looks like right now. As soon as I push save, right, and I'm going back to my class here, I'll see, where's my students? Let's see here, add a student to my roster. I'm going to add this one, invite to join the link. Incognito window, join. You'll see there's multiple classes because I'm already logged in. This was the test class. Here is the pre-assessment survey that we were talking. It asked the students to complete the survey, to go through it. So just going to continue here, drag and drop. It's not going to let me unless I go through this all, just so everybody is aware. 1, 2, 3. So you'll see I'm taking the survey here. 4. I'm going to the other questions. Let's see if it'll allow me to advance. All right. So I'm going through the survey, and when I exit the survey, let me see if it allows me. Oh, it's going to make me go through all of those. Oh, maybe not. You must complete the survey. Okay. So anyway, when you go through the survey, and they're on the next one, the InfoZones. I'm not going to waste time going through the pre-survey for everyone. It's not too many questions. It's 10 or 15. But when they click into InfoZones, the videos are grayed out. So they can't even click on it. Just the assessment is there. So as Erin said, you can change that. Let's say someone was absent and needs to watch the videos on their own. They can do that. You just go back in there and turn that off. But if you have the one-to-many mode going, when they get to InfoZones after the pre-assessment, the video is just grayed out. So they don't have to watch it. It just goes right to the formative assessment. I'm going to pause to see if there's any questions.
There've been a couple of questions. There's a little bit of confusion, I think, about what one-to-many mode looks like. I think, are you getting ready to show that specifically?
The one-to-many mode, yes, definitely. So the one-to-many mode allows educators, as I said, to share the video to students from a whole class instruction, while the students just have the formative assessment on their own computer. So there is the course right there. And as you do the up next, when you start InfoZones, and if you are a user of InfoZones, it had some fabulous updates over the summer. Again, it goes through and you can project this up on the screen, the videos. This is the introduction. Here we have Tracy Potts, the assessment, which I'm going to share with you in just a moment. This is what will show up on the student side instead of access to the videos.
So I was just,
yep, go ahead, Erin.
Well, and I'm thinking about, I know it's hard to visualize in a class, but so if all of your students have their computers open, if you have access to one-to-one devices, when you're projecting the video, that screen is grayed out for them. So it's a perfect time for like a screen close or a half close. Like, okay, we're all together watching video, because they can't see anything on their screen. It's a message that you're into one-to-many mode, but they're signed in. So when that video stops, what they're going to see is that formative assessment. So it can be then, okay, screen's up, let's answer, process, answer, let's talk. And then, the next learning component, the next video, but you're controlling that pace. And I think that's an important point to note about one-to-many. You are the pace setter. You are the pace car, determining we're watching video, we're talking, you do formative assessment, now we're back to the next. Whereas if students are independently going through, they watch video, formative assessment, they watch video, formative assessment, and you don't have that pace setting control that you would with one-to-many. Hopefully that makes sense.
And since I'm going to be sharing my screen, I will, when we are done with the webinar, I will go through the pre-assessment as a student and then take a screenshot and just put it right on that Google resource document. So you can see an image of exactly what it looks like. I'll do that for the group. And that way we will not have to hold everyone up. So look for that later on the Google document. I'll just cut and paste it so you can actually see, but it is grayed out on their screen, only the assessment. So these are all the updates on InfoZones. Updated it with new resources that are current and relevant. And students and those who have used it so far say it is fantastic. So if you have used InfoZones in the past, be sure to check it out this year. But I do want to highlight a few lessons as was promised in the description for this webinar. So we're going to jump right into it. Starting with harm and distrust. So you'll notice harm and distrust is not only linked onto the Google document, but so is the lesson guide. On Checkology, underneath our resource tab, you'll see there's Google Documents for each lesson, which is fantastic, not only for transcripts for students, but it talks about the learning objectives, it talks about grade levels that it's appropriate for, and it also talks about the essential questions. It has the word wall words on it. But harm and distrust is one of our newer lessons. So I'm excited to share this with all of you today. Harm and distrust examines the harm caused by some mainstream news organizations in their coverage of marginalized communities and the legacy of distrust that have resulted. It's presented through a series of case history of coverage of Black Americans using actual news coverage. It employs many journalists, many researchers, and it is one of our lessons that we are most proud of. We have worked on this for a very long time, brand new last year, and a favorite amongst our team. Subject matter expert is Natalie Moore from WBEZ Chicago, and she reports on race, class, and communication. So this harm and distrust lesson talks about the history of harm caused by racist and substandard journalism and the resulting legacy of distrust among Black Americans. Accurately describing the shameful history of racism in mainstream news sources without exasperating the sense of cynicism or nihilism. So this was created because news organizations play an important role in the system of checks and balances that makes our democracy work. This lesson examines how the news and media have sometimes fallen short of this responsibility, equipping students and the public with news literacy skills they need to spot harmful news coverage so they can hold journalists accountable when needed. This lesson is designed to teach students how to summarize that role of journalism and aspire to play in American democracy. It explained why it's important for communities to be able to trust news organizations to tell their stories accurately, and it summarizes the essential role of the Black press and how it played a role in countering bias and racist narratives during the Reconstruction and beyond. So this lesson, subject matter expert is Natalie Moore from Chicago. It's divided into 6 chapters: trust in the news and harm in history, the role of the Black press, and opportunities for progress. I'm going to share with you a few clips, some of that highlights these different chapters. Here's one from the role of the Black press.
As I was growing up in Chicago, the tragic story of Emmett Till's lynching was well known to me. And so was the Chicago-based Jet magazine, a news weekly concentrated on the information needs and issues of Black America. As I shared earlier, it was Jet and other publications focused on serving the Black community that turned the gruesome photograph of Till's body into an icon of the civil rights movement. But even though many mainstream publications at the time published editorials condemning the killing, none of them ran the photographs. In capturing and distributing the image, Jet helped shine a bright light on the harsh reality of Jim Crow and told the horrific story that many mainstream newspapers, especially in the South, wouldn't. The coverage by Jet, the Chicago Defender, and other members of the Black press became a catalyst for change. The killing of Emmett Till was a turning point in the national consciousness and proved to be a pivotal moment at the start of the civil rights movement.
As I said, it's one of our longer lessons. It took many months, multiple consultants and researchers to help us provide this information at an approachable level for students. As we know, learning and discussing this history is difficult and painful, but it's necessary if we hope to better understand why marginalized communities have long-standing distrust of mainstream news organization. It's also integral to who we are as a nation and who we can be if we have the courage to truly know ourselves and face our past. Natalie goes on in the last chapter and shares and centers the students again, ending the lesson on student voice and moving the country forward. So let's listen to a portion of this last portion of the lesson.
Learning about and talking about this history is difficult and painful, but it is necessary if we hope to better understand the reasons different groups of people have long-standing distrust of mainstream news organizations. It's also integral to who we are as a nation and who we can be if we have the courage to truly know ourselves and face our past. It's also necessary if we hope to hold journalism as a field accountable and work to make it better. I want to underscore here again that even though we've been focusing on the history of a specific group of people in this lesson, there are a number of other groups that have experienced similar cycles of misrepresentation, exclusion, harm, and distrust. Each of these stories is unique, but in many ways they're also similar to the ones we've explored here together. I still believe in the power of journalism to be the voice of the voiceless, to expose injustice, including racism, and bring about positive change that improves people's lives. If I didn't, I wouldn't have dedicated my career to doing this work. I also believe in the power of the public to help journalists document wrongdoing and bring about change, like 17-year-old Darnella Frazier did when she had the courage and presence of mind to capture the murder of George Floyd on video. But with that belief in the power of journalism also comes the knowledge that it has historically failed to live up to its own ideals, sometimes spectacularly, and especially when it comes to covering the issues, communities, and identities of non-white and other marginalized people. Again, this doesn't mean that there aren't plenty of examples of excellent journalism on these subjects. There are, but there are also too many examples of coverage that falls short. Though these three historic eras we discussed are all in the past, these epic failures of the institution of journalism remain fresh in the memories of the people who have been harmed. Apologies and self-audits are one piece of the solution, but we have to consider exactly how far these efforts go in repairing trust and laying the groundwork for ongoing improvement.
So Natalie Moore continues providing hope and inspiration to our students that they will know how they can help local and national news organizations produce fair, equitable news coverage that is representative of their communities that they serve. Again, a brand new lesson. It is for high school students because of the concepts, because of the discussions, because of the deep dig into marginalized communities and how the news and press has harmed them in the past. But it also provides that hope and empowers them and centers them at the very end to how they can make a difference as well. So before we transition to the next lesson, which Erin is going to share, are there any further questions that popped up during this sharing of harm and distrust?
Nope, I don't think so, Shaelynn.
Great. So again, I'm on the content section here. Erin is also going to share a lesson underneath our learn category. It's another popular lesson. It's called Understanding Bias. So far we looked at InfoZones and some of those updates, which is fantastically helpful to lay the foundation. Understanding Bias is a definite one to help lay foundation as well, and is often used in the classroom at both the middle school and high school level. So Erin, Understanding Bias.
Yes. So Understanding Bias, taught by Indira Lakshmanan. She is actually a journalist. she was with National Geographic, and I do believe perhaps AP now. So this lesson is powerful, and just as it sounds, it explores how bias in news coverage, how that's a complex issue, and then how our own bias and can play a role in our perceptions of media bias. So that sounds deep already, I know. But also at the foundation of this, it's important that we're able to recognize types of bias. And so this lesson reveals that information, as well as the forms that bias can take, particularly when it comes to news information and media. So the part that I'm going to highlight for you, the element, notice that those dots at the bottom, they're called elements. And so I'm just going to give a snippet when I let Shaelynn know I'm ready. But this section is really getting at news bias, and we have to consider this essentially. And all of the ELA folks in the room, I think you can appreciate this as well, that we have to understand purpose of text. Because too often we throw things out that so easily that, oh, this is bias or that is bias, but news, all content on a news site is not the same. There's different purposes within the scope of news, whether it's opinion, perhaps an opinion piece, an editorial, or whether it's hard news or straight news, completely factual. So first we have to understand what it is we're reading so we can be better equipped to evaluate what we're reading. And so we're just going to see a little snippet of this lesson. Our lessons are all multimodal, taught by subject matter experts. And so you'll see different graphics included to illustrate that taught concept. So Shaelynn, if you want to go ahead and hit play, that would be fantastic.
So what exactly is bias? News media bias is when opinions favoring one side of an issue or event skew news reporting in a way that is unfair or distorting. First, let's make an important distinction between news that aims to be impartial and other content that obviously expresses a point of view. A lot of the information we encounter every day is not news, and it's not trying to be impartial. Movie and book reviews, games, ads, and even most of your friends' social media posts are created with a point of view, and they aren't meant to be unbiased. Not even all journalism aspires to be unbiased. Opinion columns, newspaper editorials, and political commentary on TV try to persuade you to agree with them. Opinion journalism is supposed to express a point of view, to provoke discussion. News journalism, however, isn't meant to persuade us. It's supposed to inform us. This kind of reporting needs to be produced fairly and accurately, and should include a range of voices. It should not include the voice of the reporter. The primary purpose of this type of story, a straight or hard news story, is to provide an accurate representation of issues and events. That means presenting the relevant facts in as straightforward, clear, and impartial a manner as possible. That way, the audience can draw their own conclusions without being swayed by the individual journalist's point of view. When gathering information and reporting,
just for the sake of time, thank you. So you can see just by that introduction that Indira is using a variety of elements to showcase and to help hit that concept of opinion journalism versus hard or straight news. She'll get into the standards of journalism, and I think that's really important to mention because, as we are teaching students to be mindful of information that comes their way, we also need to let them know and inform them that journalists do follow standards, that there are journalists working hard to report on facts, that just as educators have standards, so do journalists. So after that lesson, after that concept, is taught, immediately followed by formative assessment. And so here's an example of a heading. And so we read these headlines to determine which one we believe is aspiring to be impartial or unbiased. And if we get it wrong, so let's get it wrong, we can pull that up so we can see it in large, but we can select it and then we hit next. And when we hit next, we see that, oh, not right, we get a retry, because again, this is formative assessment. And so students are able to learn as they are practicing their understanding. One other thing to point out, I want you to go to the WW And the WW is the word wall. So those of you who work with tiered vocabulary, who want to expand student vocabulary as they're learning these concepts, you can see their support there. This list is also available on all of lesson guides. So every lesson in Checkology has a lesson guide and a full transcript, and you can front load from the lesson guide with that vocabulary list. So you can see the different types of bias that are taught through the course of this lesson. Understanding bias, again, hits that complex issue with letting students know about the standards of journalism, letting them know about the types of bias, and of course, helping them understand how complex of an issue bias actually is.
Thank you, Erin. And just to piggyback off of that, students will also see the WW as well on their screens. So we're going to end with a lesson or a challenge found in the third section underneath the content tab. This is the fact check center mission. And Brittney, you're going to have us focus on the newest one here at the bottom, levels of evidence with Dr. Cat.
Absolutely. I'm going to just really quickly talk about this excellent resource. I just saw Mary reference in the chat ELL students, and one thing that will also be wonderful for your ELL students is that our videos, is if you use the YouTube preference, they have variable speed. And that is something that I did with my ELL students. I would slow the speed down so that they could really practice and listen for that academic vocabulary. So levels of scientific evidence is actually part of a trio. As you see on Shaelynn's screen, we have a tutorial where Dr. Cat goes through each type of evidence. And we also have an infographic that can be posted in your classroom, on a bulletin board, or on your LMS so that students can refer to that information. And don't worry about playing the video, Shaelynn. We can just talk through it. Because we've only got 3 minutes. But in this challenge, students are research assistants for Dr. Cat, who's a very prominent user on TikTok. She is a scientist. She talks about health literacy and science literacy. And so she immerses students in the world of science and evidence by asking them to categorize some pieces of evidence from social media and from news. She asked them to categorize it into one of the categories of information. And so students work through this challenge with formative assessment probes, as Shaelynn was just showing on her screen. They've got multiple attempts to answer those questions. So they watch the video and then they answer the questions. I think that that's a pretty good overview. I want to leave time for questions because we've had such a great discussion in the chat today. So if you have any questions that you'd like to drop into the chat now for us to answer, I've tried to answer, and Erin's tried to answer your questions throughout. But while we're waiting on questions, I just want to thank you for joining us this evening. I don't know about my colleagues, but this is one of my favorite parts of my job, to interact with educators across the nation. And it looks like Erin's got a question for us. You are on mute.
Okay. I better unmute. So assessing student work. And so that's how do we assess student work? And so when I'm just going to share my perspective, and then Shaelynn, Brittney, if you want to chime in. When we think about those formative assessments, I assessed in a done it format. So we one to many, show video, let's think, answer the formative assessment. Now let's talk as a whole group. These lessons were in service to a greater unit. And so I was assessing for assessment points per se, their application of all that was taught. So these formative assessments along the way were simply just done at points for me. While you can assess within Checkology, and you'll see that within your student dashboard, there are questions that are open-ended, so you would need to weigh in on those answers if you were assessing them for points for, I'm going to air quote it, right points. But again, I wasn't, because it was formative. I just, we're contributing, we're talking, we're discussing, we're applying this to something in the scope of our unit. So I don't know if that answered your question, but Shaelynn, Brittney, maybe you have something else to add on to that response.
Yeah,
No, I think that's a perfect answer.
Yeah, cosign. Brittney, exactly what you were going to say. I think, and I love this lesson. This, of course, as Brittney was sharing, is a TikTok assessment, but you'll see it's automatically graded, and there are a couple assessments within formative assessments within the lessons that have students explain their response or write a response. So those are not auto graded, that you'll have to grade. But we've seen educators use it a variety of ways, but most of them are automatically graded. Wouldn't you say, Brittney?
I would, and you can use we do have answer keys that you can kind of reference to see what type of question it is. And you can find that all of that on Checkology under the resource tab. We have lesson guides, as we mentioned earlier, that will also kind of help you understand, it gives you how many are auto graded and how many are teacher evaluable. So there's lots of information there, and we're happy to help guide you. You've got our contact info. So reach out if you've got additional questions.
Yes, and as you can continue to answer questions, I'm going to quickly go through this. So if anybody wants to stick around and see, this is the student account. Oh, I have to select 3 options here. That I had the one-to-many mode because I know everyone was curious. So remind me to take a picture of it. I'm just quickly marking off a few things here on this here. So ask them questions and they have to go through here. It gives them a pre and the post to collect that data. And here I'm going through there. So there's a sliding scale and mark that. I don't know because that's what my son would say. I'm going to select those 2. And here it is. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so once I push next, submit, and go back to the dashboard, here it is. You'll see that my one-to-many mode for the InfoZones will pop up. So when it push starts, and I did not change that, did I? The one-to-many mode? It's still a one-to-many mode on there, right? Or did I change that setting? Does anybody know? Here,
It's one-to-many.
There we go. Okay, so I'm going to screenshot this right now. So that second element, when they push start, they'll see this message. So this is what it looks like.
I love that picture in the background.
I know it. Let's go. Let's go. We already did it. So then they can go through here, and when they push next, use a retry. I'm just going to move on here. Okay, it's making me slow.
Shaelynn, one person had asked earlier about, and I said I'd have to check and test this out. In the one-to-many mode, when the teacher's showing the video, is it possible if a student had their device open that they would be able to answer the formative assessment having not seen the video in its entirety? And
I think so.
So I answered in the chat that I had students close lid, like do a 3/4 close, instead of having that.
Oh, that's open. A good question.
So, but I think I'm gonna have to test it out. I didn't have an answer. And I'm surprised I haven't been asked before. And the educator thought that it was the case. So I'm trusting that it probably is. But that's something to know, that to all of you in the room right now, if you come up, like if you experience something that you're like, I wonder if there could be a fix for that, send it our way, because we send those educator requests to the developers, and they can put it on their list if it's something that can be coded to change, this or that, to make it even a better experience for student and teacher. So again, if you have a recommendation or a wonder, reach out to any of us. And if we don't know the answer, we'll test it out ourselves. We'll reach out to the developers and those in our help center.
Thank you. That's a good question. I have not tried that. And here, a group of 3 educators, and Brittney and Erin more recently just left. I've been out a few more years, but we didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I really do think that option that lets them say we watched the video will let them answer the question while they're watching. If your district employs land school, that might be another fix. You might be able to like black student screens during that time. That was something I did when I was in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, in the intermediate, right? Like lock it or like just close laptop, you know? I mean,
Yes.
But
well,
but
I'm
yeah.
going to put that picture because I know that that was a question for many. We are thrilled to see so many educators joining us for our first back to school webinar, from a group of educators to all those that are joining us this evening. We wish you a fabulous 2023-24 school year. And I'm going to pass it to Erin and then to Brittney to end it.
Thank you for joining us. This is such important work, and your work is instrumental to inspiring and educating our students, because we know that this news and media literacy affects their lives. And so thank you for taking time out of your already busy day to be with us. And please reach out, because it fills our bucket when we can help you. I know a couple of people said like, oh, I might need an extra support. We love that and live for that. So looking forward to visiting with more of you and supporting your work with news and media literacy.
And I echo what Erin said. I just said in the chat to Deb specifically, but this goes for anyone. If there's a question that we didn't get to this evening, we would love to learn more about how your needs, how you're going to use Checkology this year. And we'd love to brainstorm and workshop with you to help solve any issues that you're having. So please, like Erin said, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we hope that you have a wonderful year. Again, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Bye, everyone.
Yes, and bye-bye.